Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Day in History, our nightly look back at a specific day in history, where we take a look back at the events of a specific day, the historic context in which the events occurred, and the historical ramifications of those events. As always, please like the videos, leave a comment to the videos, subscribe, hit that bell notification icon, and be sure to tell your friends. And without any further ado, this day in history, February the 13th. And on this day, in 1542, Catherine Howard, the fifth wife of Henry VIII, is executed for adultery and is beheaded. She committed adultery with a distant cousin of the king. The king found out, and she was beheaded. The king did not attend the execution of Catherine. Some births that occurred on this day. Jerry Springer was born in 1944 in Highgate, which is in Middlesex, England, in the United Kingdom. Springer, of course, is a famous American politician, political journalist, but the thing Jerry Springer is most known for is being the host of the popular daytime talk show, The Jerry Springer Show, which ran from 1991 to 2018 with original episodes, and now lives on in syndication. Since then, he has started a new talk show. It's one of those scripted courtroom dramas called Judge Jerry. But the Jerry Springer Show is the show that made Springer famous and very, very rich. The Springer Show is very famous for the fact that it never shied away from controversy. Springer would, of course, have on Klansmen, neo-Nazis, just the worst scum of the earth imaginable, and, confront them on their beliefs. He would also have on these people in just really desperate circumstances and really emotionally charged family issues. There is some question whether the segments on the Springer Show were as real as presented. That's a debate that rages to this day. One thing, though, that the Springer Show really became known for in the late 90s, and specifically the 1997 to 1998 time period is, and that's when it hit its rating peak, even garnering higher ratings in daytime talk than Oprah, was the amount of fights and violence. The LA Times did a study on the Springer Show and found that in 1 week, in April of 98, fighting occurred 5 to 12 times a day. The Chicago City Council launched an investigation into whether these fights were real, and maybe these people could be charged with crime. I remember watching court TV, and it led to a real confrontational hearing with Springer, where he was asked all sorts of personal questions, and he, of course, refused to answer some of them because they were really personal for his own safety, like, the address of where he lived and that nature. But after that, the fighting got toned down and was censored a bit more. Um, One thing I always would enjoy about the Springer Show is after you see all this carnage in the show at the end, Jerry would have, his final thoughts, and they would be along the lines of, what have we learned today of the nature? So, as someone who is a fan of 90s pop culture, I've always found the Springer Show to be interesting to look at, and especially because of someone who notices, as someone who I believe notices trends. People talk about how violent and sex charged TV is today. I contend that it's actually toned down. Um, the late 90s, in my opinion, are the height of it, and we have unfortunately regressed since then to a more sanitized TV um, than we did at that time. It's a lot more family friendly, family oriented now, um, in my personal opinion. Um, and I think the late 90s was maybe a more adult oriented TV, maybe. I certainly believe it was. You had the Jerry Springer Show. Of course, this is a time when professional wrestling was hitting its ratings peak, and you had two very prominent companies that were pushing the bounds with really edgy adult content, and now those two companies. So, one of them is no longer around, and the other is pushing more family friendly oriented programming. So I think Jerry Springer shows an interesting picture and look back into the television of the late 90s. I certainly believe that's when it was producing its best content. I find the shows with the, scum white supremacists that he had on to be interesting for sure, and to be insightful for what these demagogues believed. But I find the shows that he had on with just these people in desperate circumstances that put their personal lives out there and just personal situations that are hard for most people to understand to be compelling television. Like, we talk about the 90s being a great economic time, but there were people going on TV to willing to admit publicly and then go back and face their communities in which they lived what they had done. And you get a couple $1,000 and a trip to Chicago. Is it really worth ruining that reputation for? Anyway, I just find that to be a interesting look back. And as I said, I enjoy TV that's very edgy. I enjoy TV that pushes the boundaries. Speaking of Springer's political career, this is something that is not as well known today. Springer had a very um, prolific political career. Springer ran for the city council of Cincinnati, which is a city he lived in most of his early life. And he had to resign from the city council because he wrote a check to a young woman who worked in a an industry that's illegal. And he wrote her a personal check, and in the memo he put for services rendered. He resigned from the city council. He would later serve 1 year as mayor of the city of Cincinnati. He would run for governor in 1982 in the Democratic primary, in which he references in ads, and he did not win that election or the primary. He considered running for the Class 1 Senate seat in 2000. Mike DeWine, the current governor of Ohio, would win that election. He would go on to lose re-election in 2006 to the current holder of that seat, Sherrod Brown. He also considered running in 2004 for the Class 3 Senate seat from Ohio that was then held by former Ohio Governor and Mayor of Cleveland, George Voinovich. That seat is currently held by Senator Rob Portman. But he didn't run for those seats, partly due to his association with his television show. Some deaths that occurred on this day. In 2007, Congressman Charlie Norwood died at the age of 65 in Augusta, Georgia. Norwood was a congressman from Georgia elected in 1994 and served from 1995 until his death in 2007. He was a dentist prior to being elected to Congress, and he was a real strong immigration hawk. He proposed sending 40,000 U.S. troops to the Mexican border to control the flow of illegal immigration. So, Norwood was a very strong immigration hawk. After his death, the VA Medical Center in Augusta was named after him. Norwood had served as a captain in the Army from 1967 until 1969, and he served in the Vietnam War and won 2 Bronze Stars. So, Charlie Norwood was a very interesting member of Congress. I always enjoyed seeing him on C-SPAN. I often disagree with the positions he took, but I enjoyed seeing him on C-SPAN. I would like to thank y'all all, and I'll see y'all again tomorrow.